All right, Cole Hastings, Gen Z, the first generation with no purpose. For the most part, I would agree with this statement. I don't know what he wants to really go into. It's 20-minute video, so he'll go into a lot of things. But for the most part, I would agree. I would say, but it depends how you define kind of purpose. But I would agree that it's kind of, people don't really have goal. Like the generation Z specifically, I guess, but a lot of people, even like my generation, like the boomers, they're like mid-30s and younger, really like a lot of them, I wouldn't say it's majority of my generation, but some of us fell into the trap of the Gen Z, and we also don't have a whole lot of goals. Like, what is my life goal? I don't know, man, just have fun until I die. Like, fuck it. And, you know, that's not a very specific goal. Also, what does it mean to have fun, right? It's like, whatever, I just do whatever the fuck I want until I have to do stuff I don't want in order to do the stuff I do want again. Basically, is my way of life. I do not take life seriously. I don't have big world aspirations. I don't care about having a family, leaving something for the next generation. I really don't give a shit about that, you know. So in that regard, I don't really have a purpose. Well, let's see what he says, what he's talking about.
It was the existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre that said, "Man is condemned to be free because once thrown into the world, he is responsible for everything he does." We are at the mercy of our freedom as each second passes by, and in many different cases, Generation Z is more free than any previous generation.
Yep.
So how could that possibly contribute to Gen Z's lack of purpose? And how did we even get to the point where our generation's defining characteristics are ones of nihilism and hopelessness? After some philosophical research, as well as my own observations and solutions, these are the questions that I'm going to attempt to answer.
I personally don't think nihilism in and of itself is a negative force. I feel like nihilism, like, it depends how you view it. The way I see nihilism is that nothing really matters, which is like, you can view it in a very negative way. Nothing really matters. At the end of the day, you die. The world will burn, all that stuff. That's nihilism, right? At the end of the day, everything will die, right? So it's like, why bother? But the way I see it, it's like, well, if nothing really matters, do whatever the fuck you want. Have fun. You only live once, kind of thing. That's kind of how I view nihilism, where it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, if nothing matters, then my problems don't matter. Then why would I bother caring about my problems, right? I want to have as much fun and enjoy my life as much as I can. That's kind of like how I view nihilism. You know, it's like I use it in the sense that it's like it motivates me to not do shit I don't like and just do shit that I do like, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
In this video, where it began, postmodernism. This is such a massive philosophy to try and explain in just one YouTube video, so please do forgive me if I misconvey an idea or I don't explain something properly. Postmodernism is a movement started in the late 20th century that denotes the shift from believing in one grand narrative or truth to life to multiple grand narratives. It fuels subjectivity, individualism, and most closely related to this video, an instability of meaning. We can break up the last couple thousand years into three stages: pre-modernism, modernism, and postmodernism. In pre-modernism, God was the truth. There was a central grand narrative, belief system, and ideal that the majority of the world followed, that governed their everyday life and thoughts. Then, with the development of the scientific method and scientific observation, modernism came in and kind of made God look a little less credible. It was then that the modernists said, science is how we will make progress and find truth, not God. Lastly, which is kind of the current era we live in, is postmodernism. Although some would argue we live in a more meta-modernistic or postmodern era, but that's not really important for this video. With the rise of media, the internet, and the globalization of knowledge through mass distribution, people started to think, well, maybe this whole God thing and this whole science thing doesn't really have too much credibility. Now, the amount of differing opinions, beliefs, and ideals have been taken to a whole other level thanks to the internet age and the smartphone. With a simple Google search, you can gain access to every single philosophy, religion, or any other belief system you can think of in just a few short minutes. And because of this, there are a million different grand narratives which you can adopt. A million different truths that—
It's very hard to sell you propaganda like simple propaganda, like something like the Bible or whatever, when you have access to other stories or like other points of view, right?
That all seem to have a solution to your problems. So when this happens and you are constantly consuming information,
Why was this the first thing I saw, to the point where like I didn't see any of these? Like literally just like my eyes just zoom, like my eye was like off screen, and as soon as I looked at the screen, just boom, right here.
that conflicts with one another, it is up to you and only you to figure out what is the right information. In other words, you have the freedom to pick your own truth, and you start to realize that there is no one correct interpretation of reality.
And that's the biggest problem.
Most people are given that opportunity, they become directionless. Because if everyone is right, then is anyone really right? What's the right information? What's the correct way of living? What's the meaning to all of this? We are supposed to figure that out for ourselves now. The ability to have freedom to believe in whatever you want to believe and create your own subjective truth is something quite incompatible with the...
And funny enough, real life is, like right now how it is kind of... You're free to choose whatever you want to be, you know? It's like whatever you're passionate, go for it, right? And if you're not passionate, well, that kind of sucks. But you are free to choose. The funniest thing is, games are like MMORPGs, which like the main games I play, do not give you this choice, which is kind of funny. It gives you like a preset choice. I want more games that give you like a complete free choice, kind of like how real life gives you free choice, you know? If you choose to work out, you're gonna be more fit. If you don't, you don't, right? But it's like, and I want the game to give me a character that starts with like nothing, and I choose the paths for him, and I choose the skills that he would use, the combination, stuff like that. And it's funny how like the games used to give you that, but life didn't. Now that life gives you that freedom, games don't. It's like, the fuck, man?
Human psyche, because we all crave to some degree in our lives meaning and certainty. And this is why I've said in a couple of my past videos that most people actually prefer to not think for themselves.
100%. No one wants to lead.
Because then we can convince ourselves that our actions and the consequences of those actions
not our responsibility.
are not by our own doing. And when we're told just one truth or narrative, it gives us a singular direction to strive towards, and purpose and direction are synonymous with one another. Now it feels like there's nothing solid to believe in, and we keep asking ourselves this question: who do we know who to trust? When there's no trust and no direction, then purposelessness becomes the symptom. And not only that, but it also leads to a lack of trust between individuals. When we don't know who to believe, who to trust, or who is right, it makes us second guess others as well as a byproduct.
Always, yeah.
And that lack of trust can contribute to
And the funniest thing is, even though universities don't really teach it, but they say that they teach you to critically think. And then you become critical of every fucking thought, and it's overwhelming. It's too much. Like you can't, like, it's hard to be critical of everything. You have to have a set of values that you're just strict with, and it's like, the problem with this also is because you become blind to others. But it's like, being blind to others is not necessarily a bad thing, because whatever your set of values and beliefs are guides you on your path. But if you don't have that, you can be, you know, tossed around different aspects. That's why, like, being a complete centrist in your, let's say, in your politics is usually not that good. You're always like a bit to the right, a bit to the left, or more right, more left, doesn't matter. But being a complete centrist, which is what like someone like Destiny is supposed to be, he's not really centrist, right? But a lot of people think that he is. I don't think he's centrist at all, right?
Lack of community that we are now seeing. Why is that important? Well, community, that is a conglomerate of minds that focuses on shared goals and ideas, is one of the best ways to elicit more purpose from your life. But I'll explain this point in more detail in the next section. So that leads me to the second section of ideas that I want to go over that come out of postmodern thinking, which are hyperreality, signs, and symbols. Hyperreality was a term first coined by the philosopher John Baudrillard, and it is described as the inability to distinguish the real from the signifier of the real. In other words, it's the blurring of lines between reality and the thing that is simulating reality. Looking into the way we have interacted with objects and why we choose to interact with those objects over the past few hundred years can help us to understand this concept of hyperreality more vividly. Before our current reasons for purchase and consumption, the value of a commodity was typically based on the amount of labor put into it, how it was compared to other objects in the market, which is typically known as exchange value, as well as its usefulness, known as use value. But what has overtaken all three of these types of values in the postmodern era is a commodity's sign value. A commodity's sign value is how it differentiates itself in a system of objects through what it represents. Most objects we surround ourselves with and interact with are based around symbolism. That is to say, how the object makes us be perceived in a social hierarchy. Not only that, but commodities, aka objects, have become far more reproducible and movable than in traditional pre-modern times. So what happens when the objects which the majority of Western society interact with become based around status, wealth, upgradability, replaceability, and mobility? Well, that creates a society full of people more focused on outwardly appearances, wealth, status, and other forms of symbolism. And
all the things that don't really matter. Well, status kind of matters for other things, but like the other things don't really matter. For your personal happiness, I would say they don't really matter.
One thing all of these have in common is a lack of depth and humanity. In a Western world revolving around signs, the signs themselves, aka the thing that the object represents, become indistinguishable from reality and become more real than the object themselves. And this has created what I brought up earlier, which is hyperreality. A really solid way this has been portrayed in the media is in the movie They Live. The protagonist of the movie has a pair of glasses which, when worn, shows him the ideology or the sign behind each object in his environment.
You gonna pay for that or what? Look, buddy, I don't want no house today.
When we buy a $120 Yeezy shirt, we aren't buying it because it's a particularly good shirt with high quality materials that take a long time to make. We buy it because of the story behind the brand, aka what that shirt represents and how it changes
I don't buy it, but
view us in the social hierarchy. And when we go on social media and we see content that highlights the most polarizing, controversial opinions and actions, we start to see that more and more in our reality.
Would you rather snitch on the homies or cheat on your girlfriend?
I can't snitch. No. I'm gonna have to cheat.
The more that media becomes closer and closer to reality through technological advancements, the more and more it actually affects reality itself, until what is real and the signifier of the real thing are no longer easily separated. Our world is now a world of easily replaceable and movable signs, and humans are treated and treat others as such. This transition to a hyper-real world has also been portrayed in movies like American Psycho, Taxi Driver, and Fight Club. And it's no wonder that young men, when watching these movies and seeing the main characters' personalities, can't help but say, "He just like me for real." Objectification, consumerism, and overconsumption can be seen.
What? Who says that? Who says about any one of these?
Just like me for real.
No, it's not. What? Okay, so as far as Fight Club goes, I don't think anyone thought that the main character is just like them. However, what the message about society was pretty much, you know, you see these circumstances, people avoid fighting, confrontation, like no matter what you do to them, they'll just walk away. Yes, that is true, right? People don't like confrontation. I think that movie described that perfectly well. But to say that the main character is just like you, I don't know.
Objectification, consumerism, and overconsumption can be seen everywhere. What was once saved for overly dramatic portrayals in media has now seeped into everyday life. And a symptom of that, like I stated earlier, is a lack of depth due to a heavier focus on appearances and status. So why is this important in relation to purpose?
And the funniest thing is, when I was growing up, what mattered was, first of all, the status, like how much money, that was always valuable, but also your self-appearance. It feels like right now, specifically for one of the genders, it's not the case. It's like fat is beautiful, thin is beautiful, any body shape is beautiful. But if you're a man, have to be this, have to be that, have to have status, have to do that. It's like, why? Why don't women have the same standards for themselves? Like, do you really think guys prefer you being a certain way over another? Like, You know, I'm not gonna say what guys prefer because to which their own, but it's like everyone has their preferences. Usually preferences are a healthy looking body. And to say that something that weighs more than certain amount is healthy, it's like I'm just thinking about like the leg damage you're causing when you walk and run around at a certain weight category. That's fucked up.
This way of functioning and interacting with the world is not natural. Our world is starting to reflect the internet more and more due to the fact that people spend just about half their days on their phone, meaning half of their reality is spent in an online realm. People's expectations and interests in real life are now being shaped by algorithms and artificial intelligence. That is the very definition of hyperreality. This is where I must correct something that I said in my Rise of Incels video. Throughout that video, I constantly referred back to the fact that the online world and social media are not real life, but they are starting to become real life more and more. Everyone's expectations for a partner are much higher than ever thanks to not reality, aka social media, which highlights the most attractive people because humans are more attracted to viewing content such as that. And the natural inclination we all have to compare ourselves to other people's highlights and the most attractive people in the world makes people think their reality should look like other people's highlights. And so people try to optimize their reality to make their lives as romanticized, materialistic, and appearance-based as possible. No longer are Snapchat and Instagram filters exclusive to their respective platforms. People are getting surgery to look like Snapchat and Instagram filters in real life.
Straight up. If you're doing, like, I understand, like, you know, if your nose is fucked up, okay, I understand. But, like, all these plastic surgeries, man, you imagine you have like the worst fucking genetics in the world, you do the surgery and then your kid comes out and has still the same fucking genetics. Man, people should be sued for fucking deception, you know? It's fucked up.
Likewise, anime bodies are no longer exclusive to anime. With some trend bologna sandwiches, you too can look like Baki. If you're a young person in Generation Z and you've been unable to really connect with people on a deeper level, a good portion of that is probably due to the fact that most people lack the ability to dive deep into themselves and don't really want to anyway in our current society, which...
Personally, I don't think I can connect with other people because I really don't care that much about other people to the point where I would want to connect with them. It's like, I'm not saying that like I'm like socio-psychopath, maybe to an extent I am. I don't know. I didn't like analyze myself. And I do feel bad when I see certain people like suffering, stuff like that. Like there was this video of like this woman keeps yelling at this guy who clearly has like, it looks like autism. Right, and he works at like the sandwich place, and he says that he washed his hands, and she's like doesn't believe him and demands him to wash again. He's like, okay, wash it again. It's like they're not clean still. Like she just hates the person for no reason. There's nothing he can do about it, and she just hates him because he has autism, right? And it's like for that one, I'm like, man, I feel really bad for this guy. Like he's already playing on hard mode now. This shit, like fuck off, lady, right? It's like, just ban her from the store. Like, make her life, like, you know, her social life a bit more challenging as well. Like, this is some bullshit. Like, I feel really bad for people like that who really have life at a disadvantage. I feel bad when I see certain things that happen, right? I feel bad if I watch people, like, you know, people starving somewhere and, like, you know, barely make ends meet. I feel bad about these things. Doesn't mean I want to connect with these people. Doesn't mean I want to be their friend. Doesn't mean I want to go out of my way to do something about it, right? I just feel bad, yeah.
Does not value that. And I'm certainly guilty of all this too. I sometimes let a TikTok on red flags you shouldn't ignore from a woman affect my entire perception of a woman in real life. I lift weights partly because I enjoy it and it makes me feel good, but also because I know people
want to look good.
Will perceive me as having higher value, and I use polarizing titles and thumbnails, just like this video, to grab your attention. At this point, it's almost impossible to escape this game, even if you do delete all your social media, unless you join this newly emerging trend of off-grid living, which is starting to emerge as a way to revolt against postmodern culture and hyper-reality. It's not as if purpose is gone completely. Everything I just stated that I do has an underlying reason as to why I do them, but it's the type of purpose that most—
I don't feel like off-grid is the solution. I feel just people being more self-aware, people making more videos like what Cole is doing here, and making people more aware of how they're affected by social media. I feel like that is a better solution. Like people internalizing that issue and just realizing that they shouldn't be spending all their time on social media, because social media overall can be easily a force for good. Sharing of information can always be a force for good, even if there's too much information, but like it's more like filtering the information rather than like blocking it. The other thing is no, there's not a thing. Basically, it's like I feel like people just need to realize how much it affects them. The hardest part is, in my opinion, I feel like it should be more age restricted. I feel like kids, until they have like a semi-functional, mature brain, so probably like 16 years old, shouldn't really participate in social media. That's what I believe. Now, technically, people would say 18 or 21 because of prawn and all that stuff. And I was like, look, let's be real. I feel like 16-year-olds are about as dumb or as smart as an 18-year-old. There's plenty of 16-year-olds who are making way better arguments than some 30-year-olds I know, okay? So it's like, I feel like 16-year-olds are adult enough to be responsible for their actions. I'm not saying we should lower the age of consent or anything like that. I'm just saying, brain-wise, they're not that far off for social media.
Most things are centralized around that lacks the depth that humans have experienced for centuries before our time. This new type of purpose can almost not even be considered purposeful at all, because it does not derive the meaning out of life that makes life feel like you are really alive. Instead, it makes you feel like an object in a simulated reality, and it convinces you—
Just say it, Cole. Just say you're living in the Matrix. Embrace Andrew Tate, Cole. You're living in the Matrix.
That the solution to this lack of depth is more. More friends, more money, more items, and more followers.
Funny enough, the solution for most of this is actually less. Maybe more money, but everything else less. Right?
So now we have to ask this question. What can the average person in Gen Z do to feel like their life has more purpose and meaning? And how can one feel more alive rather than feel like they live in a hyper reality? Well, the typical answer to this that most people in the self-improvement space are advocating for is to go back to tradition. We need to go back to a time where we only had one grand narrative, put our faith in God, get off social media.
There is that movement, yeah.
So basically,
I don't agree.
A return to pre-modernism. Now, for a lot of people, this can be a great solution to their individual life.
Could be, but I feel like instead of going back, we should adapt that we are evolving, that our let's say this is like the postmodernism. I would say it's not the solid state yet. It's still evolving and still changing. So for example, what he considers pre-modernism was also not just one phase. It was a wave or like a sea of phases, and then it solidified itself as pre-modernism. And when pre-modernism was changing into modernism, there was something in between, like that change. And I feel like what we are at now, the postmodernism, it's not solid yet. We're still changing it up. It's like you can call the phase of change a postmodernism, because let's say this, pre-modernism to modernism, you could consider that whole phase as postmodernism in comparison to pre-modernism. So I feel like we just didn't change, we didn't reach where we are trying to reach yet. We're still on that change phase. So in that regard, going backwards is not a good solution. People don't like to go backwards almost ever, and we just need to figure out ways to make this work. Because after we make it work, there's going to be another problem. Don't worry, we'll find the problems, right? And humans are really good adapting and fixing their issues, and I feel like we are just not there yet. Going back, in my opinion, can be a solution for some, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a good progression to society.
if they are capable of doing so. But what about the people who find themselves constantly surrounded by postmodernists or people who live in a hyper reality? And if this trend continues, it's only going to become harder and harder to find that connection.
Hair was bothering me.
And intimacy that most humans are lacking from their life. Like I critiqued in my video on the masculinity crisis, I do think that in most cases, past traditions are not going to be the one right solution to present day problems. Encouraging people to get off social media and spend more time outside is very good for their physical and mental health.
Sure.
But if this new way of living gets bad enough, I think what humans are going to do, or what they need to do, is to evolve and adapt to this new age of individualism. I mean, really ask yourself how humans have managed to survive for this long. It's because we know how to adapt and evolve as the world continues to develop. It is absolutely clear to me that the average person is having a much harder time finding someone to marry or have a serious relationship with, or even become friends with on a deeper level. So loneliness and a lack of connection with other humans is already starting to become the norm.
Funny enough, the way I adapted to that, like the whole like finding it harder to look for a relationship, finding it hard to find friends, is I embrace the loneliness. I'm not lonely anymore because it's like it feels like I convinced myself that I just don't want these things. And truly, at this point, I don't. But at some point, I did, right? And even though sometimes I see my friends with like their family and their kids and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, that's nice. That is like a brief 5-second moment. Most times, I'm like, I just can't wait to get out of here. Like, I'm sick of these kids. Right now, I could have just convinced myself of that, or maybe that's really how I am. At this point, I can't even tell. But as far as I know, I don't feel lonely. I don't feel like I want a relationship. I usually, even if I have that feel, almost instantly, it's like, it's just such a hassle. You know, it's just such a pain in the ass to even get there. That's like, giving up on it feels more natural at this point. Clearly, I'm fucked up, but yeah.
If this is the case, and enough humans are starved of this intimacy, then eventually the brain will have to evolve and adapt to reflect this change. Meaning that, and yes, this is gonna sound crazy, I think one day the human organism is no longer gonna need as much social connection as it does now in order to function optimally. But that's probably gonna take hundreds of thousands of years.
Really, I feel it already.
Dead. So what you need to do right now is force yourself and your brain to start to adapt to the current times and become more self-sufficient. This is a concept that I've been playing around with in my head since I've had the idea for this video, and I'm just going to call it the on-off social switch. This is a state of being you get to in which you can overpower your primal brain's need for intimacy and social relationships, and you yourself learn how to produce those same sort of feelings within your own organism. I feel like to some extent, people like myself who are introverts have already learned how to do this pretty well. I enjoy spending most of my time alone anyway, and derive a lot of the pleasure I get out of life from my alone time. Understandably, I can see myself getting a lot of criticism for even suggesting that humans should try to evolve out of our natural need for social connection, but it just seems like with the way things are headed,
it might just happen on its own.
Is probably not going to happen. Ever since the pandemic, I think we've gone past the point of return when it comes to being a society that allows almost everybody to be social and reproduce. If you are completely socially deprived, then yes, make an effort to put yourself out there and make friends. But the type of depth and companionship you are looking for will probably be more difficult to find in others now.
It's more of a, it's not even so much of like evolve or adapt. It's more of a, your brain needs to counterbalance, right? It's like it needs to like balance itself out. If your brain is getting too much, like for example, right? We want to be social beings. Before the internet, it wasn't as easy to get as many people to interact with, right? It's like compared to like right now, you can interact with like thousands of people almost instantly, right? Before it was like you had to like go somewhere and stuff like that. So before, when you would not get any interaction, you would feel the need to go out and talk to people and stuff like that. Now, because you get so much interaction, you actually feel the need to do the exact opposite, to like stay away from people and stop talking to others. And this makes it feel like people become more antisocial, but it's because we're overloaded with social aspects, I won't say socialism, but not really. You're overloaded with social aspects that you need to like unwind from that. Some people obviously like the what do you call them? Outroverts? I don't know. Fuck. Introverts, outrovert. I feel like, yeah. Extrovert. The extroverts can just, like, they live for talking with other people. I get that. But even them, I know, like, I knew a few people who were extroverts. Even they needed to relax for a bit and just, like, be like, oh, I just need to be alone for a bit. You do get overloaded, right? If you're, like, and again, if you're an introvert, you're just more okay with being alone. But doesn't mean introverts don't want to talk to people ever. Right? If they have absolutely no one to talk to ever, like no family, no nothing, they will also become slightly more extroverted in some scenarios just because the brain needs to balance itself out.
Found within yourself. If you want to feel like your life has more purpose, you must befriend that mammalistic need for connection and make it realize that you can be your own best friend who can give yourself the love that it needs. I've made plenty of videos on how to enjoy your time alone, and I explained that most of the feeling of loneliness comes from that primal need I just described, a lack of self-worth thanks to a simulated reality that makes you compare yourself to completely unrealistic expectations.
Good quads, by the way.
And our hierarchical social structure that now allows much less people to experience sexual intimacy and social connection. Now, of course, if every human being operated in the way I just described, and all we did with our time was be alone, then we'd go extinct. We need communities in order to build incredible life-changing things, and we need to reproduce, which requires at least some level of connection with another human. And that's why I've called this the on-off social switch. It's knowing when you can use that social switch to benefit yourself and others by collaborating with other humans, versus knowing when you need to be okay with turning it off when you're alone most of the time and learning to become more self-sufficient. This advice is not applicable to everyone, but it is applicable to people who feel like they don't belong in our current society, which is becoming much less accepting of average. But ultimately, everyone, not just the people negatively affected by the current times, should strive to live more deeply. So now, let me hit you with some copium. What does it mean to live deeply? To me, living deeply means becoming so involved in even the most mundane of activities that you barely even have time to think if you feel lonely or not. It means growing out of the instant gratification that makes the awe-inspiring world we find ourselves in boring. Everywhere you look, you are experiencing the miracle of life. The very fact that you can hear these words and see this screen with your eyes is a statistically impossible fortune that you've been gifted with. Each day, really examine...
Yeah, I really hate this argument. It's the whole argument of like, you know, millions of sperms fucking flying to your mom's womb, whatever. It's like, and you were the one that was selected, right? It's like the chances of you being selected is like less than winning the lottery or some shit. You know, all of these fucking arguments. It's like, I get it, but I don't care, you know. It's like, who, like, this argument is first of all overused, and it's like it was cool on like the first or second motivational speaker who used it, and it's like it's a miracle that you're even alive and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, sure, I get it, but guess what, I'm not feeling like I'm a miracle, okay? Because the problem with this analogy is that's like, that means that everyone who is alive is a miracle, means no one is a miracle. It's the whole thing again. It's like, if everyone's right, no one is right. If everyone's a miracle, no one's a miracle. It's not, you know, it's not that fucking, it's like not that great of a miracle, you know? It's like, the chances of winning the lottery is 1 in a billion, but everyone wins the lottery. Then it's not 1 in a billion, you know what I mean?
What it is you are experiencing right now. Get really involved
you don't feel
in this
special
thing called life by participating in it in as many ways as you can and as presently as you can. Have appreciation for the instrument that is your body. Take walks and marvel at the swaying of the trees, the color of the leaves,
I hate nature,
all the different sounds and sights, even the ones that are man-made. There is awe in everything if you focus deeply enough on it. Everything in this postmodern era has programmed you to not understand and realize this. Postmodern society wants you to believe that your existence serves no point and has no joy unless you achieve
Nihilism.
status, wealth, and popularity. But this perspective of being in awe and wonder over just about everything in this realm of human consciousness, which is very much so awe-inspiring and wondrous, and adopting the child's viewpoint of seeing everything as novel, is available for you to take back at any moment. Just really center yourself in this moment in which you are hearing the words.
Like, the thing is, it's like, if you really think about it, how special it is to be human. We're the only animal who can go to any climate, enjoy every fucking scenario in this world. We are literally meant to enjoy everything this world has to offer. Yeah, you can think about it that way and be like, man, life's good. Even if life sucks right now, you can pick up and leave and go somewhere else. You have so many options. You can think about it that way, yeah. Or you can be a realist and be like, man, life just fucking sucks sometimes. Yeah, it fucking does. It's like, and at the end of the day, we all die. Might as well make the most of it.
As I am saying right now, and realize how absolutely insane it is for you to even be experiencing anything at all, with all its different textures, colors, smells, and sounds. No matter what you do, if you can keep that frame of mind, then just about everything will feel purposeful. And despite how cynical the majority of this video may have sounded, I do have hope for Gen Z. This is the most progressive, free-thinking generation the world has seen, and that's
progressive is a good word.
Out of traditionalists. Gen Z is starting to wake up and realize that a lot of traditional values and religion are corrupt in nature, and we can take what has worked from past traditions and refine it into something better. At first, this collapse of everything traditional and natural may cause complete chaos and crisis, like we're seeing right now, but just as one chips away at a sculpture to reveal its art, chaos and crisis are necessary for things to get built back up into a new, improved version. Just so long as we don't end up killing ourselves before that happens. And even though simulated reality is starting to seep into reality, there will always be people who understand that social media in many aspects still isn't real life, and there will always be people who will not use it and not let it affect.
See, the thing is, it's like, this whole argument of like, what is real life? I think this argument is not the greatest. Real life really is what your brain considers as real life. Someone who sees people who are not there, for him that's real life. For everyone else it's not, but for him it's real life. It's the whole thing of like, if you think about the Matrix, I mean the movie, not the whole analogy, right? People who lived inside the Matrix and didn't know about the actual world, they didn't care. And honestly, I would say a lot of people who would find out, and then it's like, well, you took me out of my peaceful Matrix life into this war-torn, destroyed world. Why? I might as well stay in the fucking Matrix then. You know? Yes, there's like, you know, there's like an overlord AI that controls the world, yeah. But for the regular person, this wouldn't matter. The regular person wouldn't be outside of the program and would have to be controlled to get back into it, right? And I'm not talking about the analogy. The analogy you can use on everything. Like you can use it in a school, you can use it in a political party, it doesn't matter. You can use it in business. Yeah, I'm just talking about like in that scenario where you just live in a world that you think is real. I would say if VR ever gets to the point of like Sword Art Online type thing without the death, you know, and also maybe even with the death, I would say a lot of people would choose to live there instead of the real life. It's like, hey, I can let go of my body and transfer my consciousness to this video game and live there. And then I can move around video games when I feel like. I would say a lot of people would say, yeah, fuck it, let's go. Right? And it's like you guarantee that you will not die. Right? So you guarantee that you can just keep staying in this game forever. Or like switch between games whenever you want. I would say a lot of people would say yes, instead of living real life. So it's like, what is real life? It's all, real life is really what your brain considers as real. It doesn't matter.
affect their perception of the world too much. I don't think it's as extreme as Baudrillard probably thought it would be, nor do I think it's as extreme as the people who are trying to make money off of you by telling you how to escape the matrix are making it out to be. But I don't know,
he said
I'm
it.
just a guy on the internet, a sign amongst signs,
True.
a mere object of a brand that is more real to you than the real Cole Hastings himself.
This is true.
Idea of a YouTube Cole Hastings, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real YouTube me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can hear me talk about stories and watch my mouth move, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
You know, sometimes we just need those reminders to live more deeply and with more purpose. And one thing that could help
That's
with
all
that
it is.
my free newsletter. Yes, I just started back up.
This is really like what I feel like the actual answer is just internalizing that we are being basically becoming antisocial, right, with social media, and just realize that this is what's happening and take a break from it and go and do other shit. Yeah, I think that's really like the quick fix for this whole situation. Just kind of like unwind from it more often than you are. Just be aware that you're spending an hour watching an Instagram page, and it's like, whoa, fuck am I doing? And just like, okay, let's go do something else, right? I think that's like the only thing. Is just you have to start internalizing that you're wasting a lot of your time on nothing.
Up my newsletter. It's been on hold for a while, but yes, it is now back. Fallback Friday is a newsletter that will share the most inspiring quotes or lessons or stories that I've read within the past week or 2 weeks, just so you have something to fall back.
And that there are more videos like this that make you aware. You know, the whole like motivational speak became like a massive phenomena because people needed to hear certain things that they knew. It's like, if you can look up, you can get up. It's like, it's not fucking rocket science. It's not something like super like profound that like no one thought of. Most people know all of this, but it's like hearing it, especially like some people that just have a really good voice for it. Hearing it and stuff like that is like, it's inspiring you to do something, right? A lot of times when you get like a personal trainer, me who used to be a personal trainer, a lot of times people just needed that encouragement. They didn't need anyone to teach them certain things. A lot of times they did, but many times like they're like, you think I need to teach somebody after like training them for like half a year? You think for the next half year that I'm training them I need to teach them things? No, they just come to me because they need that accountability. They need someone to just tell them that they can do it. They need someone to push them because they can't push themselves. I'm like, trainers don't do anything otherworldly or like they're not great motivational speakers or anything like that. They just tell you what to do, and because someone told you what to do, you're doing it, right?
On. That's why I call it Fallback Friday. So if you're looking for a motivating kind of self-improvement newsletter like that for free, then you can sign up using the link in my description. And I'm giving you a free ebook if you do sign up to that. You'll get my ebook, 3 journal prompts for self-growth, completely for free when you do sign up. I can already picture the "clearly you got a lot to learn, bucko" comments in the comment section. So if that is you, or if you want to add some input or critique something else I said, then be sure to leave a comment below. I love seeing what you guys think of these topics. And if you are looking for those videos in which I talk about how to enjoy your alone time more, check out this video, might help you out. And I'm finally signing off. I love you guys. Thanks for sticking around till the end. That always helps a lot. Peace.
He does sound like a really nice guy, by the way. I don't know if me and him would get along long term, like friend wise, but like, sounds like a nice guy. Like, whoever is his friend, I'm sure like they're in a good relationship. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways. So he just sounds like a nice guy. I don't know what to say. He just sounds like a nice guy. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.